Servus and greetings from Vienna. My name is Anita Posch. Thank you for listening to Bitcoin & Co., my podcast that's introducing the philosophy, ideas and people behind Bitcoin. Don't miss the upcoming interviews and subscribe to the show in your podcast player now. Before we start, I want to thank my sponsors. Without their support, this podcast would simply not be possible. And they have great products and services too, so please listen to their messages and afterwards enjoy. Do you want to keep your Bitcoin safe long term? The card wallet is the best cold storage solution a retail customer can get. It's easy to use and completely offline. No hassles with updates, passwords or hacks. I gave one to friends as a wedding gift. They are Bitcoin newbies, but with the card wallet even they can hodl Bitcoin securely. And the best thing is, my friends at cardwallet.com made a special offer for all the listeners of my podcast. If you go to www.cardwallet.com/Anita, you'll get 20% off the price. So go to www.cardwallet.com/Anita now and buy a card wallet with a 20% discount. I approached Shift Crypto Security because I feel like we care about the same things. My absolute belief is in independence. This is a value that drives all of Shift's products too. We both believe that everybody should be the holder of their own keys, and a well-built hardware wallet is the safest way to hodl your coins. So when Shift announced the Bitbox 02, we made it happen. The Bitbox 02 is Swiss-made, secure and easy to use. It has invisible touch sensors and USB-C, and it also comes as a Bitcoin-only edition. That's something I believe in too. So I encourage you to check it out at shiftcrypto.ch. That's shift, CRIPTO.ch. And you can get free shipping with the code ANITA. The Bitbox 02 by Shift Crypto Security. So hello and welcome to this new episode of the Bitcoin & Co. podcast. Today's guest is John Carvalho. I hope I say it right.
It's Carvalho if you say it in English, but it's Carvalho in Portuguese.
In Portuguese. Are you from Portugal or do you have...
My father and my mother's father were both born in the Azores, which are the islands off of the Portuguese coast.
Nice to go home to make a holiday there, or?
I haven't been in a long time. I would like to go sometime in the nearer future, though.
And John, you're the CCO at Bitrefill. Does it mean Chief Communications Officer?
That's correct. Some people get it wrong. They think it's Chief Compliance Officer, and that's definitely not my job.
Okay. Or Chief Customer Officer. I've also read that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Okay, so no compliance at Bitrefill.
Oh, no, definitely. We have compliance. Compliance is just a little bit easier for a gift card company than for an exchange or something like this. You know, we're not holding or taking deposits of fiat or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so since when are you working for Bitrefill?
I joined in late December of last year.
What has you brought into the Bitcoin space?
What have I brought to the Bitcoin space?
I mean, in the sense of... when did you hear about it first? And yeah, excuse me, it's my English.
It's okay. I live in Europe, so I'm usually pretty good with different phrasings and accents, but sometimes I still need more practice. I joined Bitcoin world in late 2012, basically like many people in that year and the year after because of Silk Road news. And once I started, I heard about that people were using something to buy drugs online and somehow getting away with it. I was like, what the hell is this thing? And I started reading about it, hopped into the Bitcoin Talk forums. Back then, a lot of people were hanging out in IRC. These days, I think it's mostly just developers still in there. So a lot of time in IRC, and there was a little Bitcoin community there. And basically, it became like a full-time job in addition to my full-time job. I just could not stop consuming Bitcoin information, and it really never stopped. And now it literally is my job. At least I work at a very Bitcoin-centric company. But yeah, that's the short version of my history.
Yeah, I would like to have a little longer version. So when you discovered it in 2012, did you then start like also do Bitcoin mining, or did you just read about it and talk about it with your friends?
Back then, I think that many people were like me, and we basically did everything. Try Silk Road, try mining Litecoin, try trading, try, anything you could do to be like a part of Bitcoin. A lot of us were just doing it just because like we could, it was, we even had like, I think the cycles of Bitcoin each bring like an iteration of scammers, and we even had our share of scammers back then. We had like the Ponzi schemes and things like this. But yeah, that's a little bit how it was in the early years.
So you said at the beginning it was the case that you were fascinated by the fact that you can get away with something with using Bitcoin. So what is the point for you now? What's the most interesting part about Bitcoin for you? What does it enable? What's so important?
I don't know, like having, living in the US, I've traveled a lot. Dealing with authority and being pulled over by police, whatever incidents I've had in my personal life with my interaction with authority, it basically like really taught me like this is a powerless moment. Like when you have to pass through a border control, when you get pulled over, when you have some kind of interaction with your governmental authority, you get this, you come to learn like how powerless you really are in this situation. And you have to become meek, and you have to be, especially in the US, you have, there is also like a power dynamic with police officers and things like this. And it's just, this is not suiting for my personality. And I assume many Bitcoiners at least. And so when you get this feeling of when you have money that nobody can stop you from using, it's like you feel a little bit like you can take your power back, and I feel like just more free. I feel like more natural if I know that I can just, if what I've earned and what I've created with my own limited mortality of time here, if I can hold that and control it, then I feel more free. And I think that that's a more abstract way of talking about Bitcoin's qualities. But you ask me what it means to me, and it just means that I can actually be free and be a sovereign individual, just a man on this earth doing what I want, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else.
So, and before Bitrefill, have you been also working in the Bitcoin space, or did you do something else? Yeah,
before Bitrefill, I was doing a video streaming project. Basically, we had a website that allowed people to monetize video streaming using Bitcoin only. It was not trustless. Maybe with Lightning, you can maybe get closer to achieving such a thing. It's still not yet though. But that was more of a small project I was doing with a couple people. That's what brought me to Romania. Was my business partner is Romanian, but it got to a point basically where I had to decide whether to double down and say, okay, do I want to start raising money and start scaling this up, or do I just want to put it aside and choose a different path? And I honestly wasn't sure what I wanted, and that was when I put out a test tweet joking about whether I was looking for a job and with a meme, and Sergey from Bitrefill was asking me if I was serious, and so we started having conversations, and here I am.
Okay, that's really funny. I mean, Twitter is enabling so much.
Yeah, Twitter for Bitcoin is awesome. This is another good thing about Bitcoin is it's so international. And particularly for Americans, like there are Americans that travel and there are ones that don't, at least outside of the US. And I just feel like it's like a whole other world of person. Like being in Europe now and like being here with you, being in Berlin, it's like this is not something Americans are accustomed to, many of them, and I do think it's a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
international.
It's a global phenomenon.
And Twitter accommodates us to be able to be an international community.
Yeah, I think Twitter is so open, and actually that's the same with the Bitcoin community in a way, because it's so easy to ask questions if you mean it, if you're not trolling. And also, like, now we sit here and talk with each other, and I think that's so easy. But I could imagine, like, in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time, that there will be the suits here. What do you think?
By the suits, you mean that it will no longer...
The business, the consultants, and,
They're already here, quote, air quotes. You can't see them on the podcast. They're already here. They're basically, like the New York blockchain week. This is the blockchain conferences.
Yeah.
They're already here. They've chosen their niche. They figured out where they belong to some degree. There's still some growing pains with them figuring out where they belong, like with UASF and things like this. But Bitcoin slaps them in the face eventually when they don't know where they belong and puts them where they belong.
That's a great sentence. Yeah. How did this, in your view, develop in the last years? I mean, it went from a very, very, very tiny little niche and not very many people using it to, I would say I think they estimate this 2 or 3% worldwide have or use cryptocurrencies. I don't know we don't know exactly. Do you feel at the moment there's a new wave of people coming in? Is it going, because with every boom, new people come in?
So I think that's maybe two different questions, which is what I think about the current trend and what do I think about generally how many people are using Bitcoin. As far as how many people are using it, I kind of see both sides, kind of two different ways. One is, as Bitcoiners, I think sometimes we underestimate how small Bitcoin really still is.
Underestimate or overestimate?
Using double negatives, I guess. But in other words, Bitcoin is smaller than most Bitcoiners really realize it is. It's really actually very small. But on the flip side, we have made a lot of progress and we have had a lot of success and we have come a long way. And when I say that, it's not to so people on the outside can be like, yep, it's still small, it's meaningless and doesn't matter. That's not what I mean by saying it's small. I say this as a warning to Bitcoiners to keep in mind that we still have a lot of work to do. But we have been proceeding at a great pace. I have no complaints about the pace of success for Bitcoin. I mean, when I started Bitcoin, I bought my first Bitcoin, it was $10, and there was no Lightning Network, there was no ICOs, there was no all of these things that happened later, and now to see it when I saw it go to $20,000, I could have never predicted the acceleration in price, at least at that short term of time. What was the other half of your question?
Where do you think
the current trend? Yep. Yeah. I think right now there is a little bit of a low. The past couple of months, we were just watching the panel with the merchant panel with Miles, and he mentioned that the Lightning Network seems like it's kind of stagnated a little bit in growth recently, and it's tricky because I think that the Bitcoin market itself as a whole, that Lightning is a subset of that, a separate part of it, a smaller aspect of it, and you need kind of the Lightning Network is pretty difficult to grow without growing the Bitcoin network as a whole. So the trend right now, at least in the very short term, I think we're at a little bit of a low. But I think that ramping up into the halving next year, sometime within the 6 months or before or after, I think we'll probably see another cycle, and that will kind of reinvigorate things a bit. As Bitrefill, our growth has been great this year, but we have pretty good insight into what people are doing with Lightning because it's just one of our payment methods, and we have others, so we can keep kind of a good eye on who's using Bitcoin, who's paying with some of the altcoins, and who's paying with Lightning. And it's true what Miles said. The network looked like it hasn't been growing very quickly in the past couple of months. Neither have sales of people spending Lightning, so it's accurate in my opinion. But I don't see this as any type of turn. I don't think the market has turned and now we're going to we're dead. I just don't think Bitcoin dies. So it's just a matter of time.
Okay, so you're quite sure that Bitcoin will survive anything?
I hope so. I certainly have my how I invest is reflecting that. I can't bring myself to invest in anything besides Bitcoin anymore.
Okay, so you don't see any other asset as equal or better than Bitcoin?
For saving, no. I if somebody says to me, "Oh, you should diversify. You should hold some gold. You should hold some stocks or retirement fund," and I'm entirely opted out of any of that game anymore. I just do not want to participate in the fiat game.
Mm-hmm. So you also see it as a longer term investment, because I think it will take some time also to get back to the 20,000 or something else. We don't know.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the way I live my life is basically, I try to hold as much of my value in Bitcoin as I can. And when I get my paycheck, I think about how much money I'm going to spend in the next month to my next paycheck. And that's the only money I will spend. I prioritize saving. I really do.
Is this? Have you learned that through Bitcoin?
Yes,
in a way?
For sure. On one hand, Bitcoin helped me be able to do that. In other words, I did get in early, and I am not a millionaire. I am not rich by most measures, but I was able to kind of, in the US, most people have debt. And I was able to erase my debt. So because of Bitcoin appreciation, I was able to become debt free. I own no credit cards, and to me that is an achievement, just to, as an American at least.
But how do you live in the US or work there without credit cards? I think I traveled there in June, and I issued a credit card to be able to pay there, because they don't take cash anymore.
I have a debit card for a checking account.
Okay.
It works just like a credit card.
Okay.
And I keep a very small amount of money to basically only last me a month in there, and that's how I go.
Mm-hmm. And are you paid in Bitcoin or in US?
Yeah, I'm paid in Bitcoin.
Oh, okay. So that's okay. Yeah. I mean, working in a Bitcoin and Lightning company, you should be paid in Bitcoin, I think.
Well, on the note of you mentioning, working for a Bitcoin company, you want to be paid in Bitcoin company. I want to elaborate on that, because while it sounds obvious, I actually think there's a fundamental aspect to why it is obvious. It's that when you're part of a startup and you're part of somebody working on Bitcoin, whether it be for pay or as an open source developer, the only, Bitcoin, because it's not an organization, it's never going to hire you. The only way to get paid by Bitcoin is by holding Bitcoin. And so I really feel like, because I work at a Bitcoin company, I must be paid in Bitcoin. Nothing to do with my personal preference of accumulating Bitcoin. It's that I feel like I must, because the only way I can properly get the exposure to my efforts fully is by having Bitcoin. Because when Bitrefill does something that not only helps Bitrefill but also helps Bitcoiners or the Bitcoin network or the growth of this industry, then the only way I can realize that gain of the industry is actually by holding a piece of it.
Yeah, it's like a little bit like a share. You hold a share in an open source, open protocol.
I've joked with this with my boss actually at Bitrefill, and I said, I work for Bitcoin. And I said, I mean that both ways. I mean that I work to earn Bitcoin because I want Bitcoin, but also my higher level boss is Bitcoin,
It's the same here. So, in a tweet, I saw you saying an ETF is fools hoping for greater fools. Why?
Well, I mean, if you take the context of how most people discuss ETFs in Twitter, which is probably the best example, it just always feels to me, I get a feel when people behave certain ways, and I try to pick up on these patterns. And when people talk about ETFs, I just kept seeing, why do these people care so much? These are people that have Bitcoin. They know how to get Bitcoin. Why would they possibly be so obsessed with whether or not we get an ETF? It's because they want someone else to make them rich. And this is nothing to do, yes, I do believe Bitcoin is the best store of value, but you have to have enough of it for it to make you rich, for even to you to be realistic about how that will affect you as a person. And you have to be a productive, useful human being if you want to get rich. You have to specialize and provide something that a lot of people want. And so I don't like the behavior of people saying hawking over what's happening with the ETF environment, because I think all they really want is somebody else to pump their bags so they can sell them. And to me, Bitcoin it's not about getting rich. I feel a lot better that my logic and understanding of Bitcoin means that I probably will become rich. But that it's not a requirement.
And we don't know if it will happen.
Right. It's not a requirement at all. I mean, maybe if you want to say, I hope I don't lose all my money, that's where you can start from instead. But with the ETF thing, it's like people that are good at making money, institutions, traders, Wall Street, they know how to get something if they want it. If they want to invest in Bitcoin, they can invest in Bitcoin. They already are. And so and we see this with the Backed release. Like Backed was news for like a year, all the time, constant, every week, or whatever update we'd be seeing in CoinDesk, etc. And then when it came out, it was like a dud, like it was just, it's a new product and not that many people use it yet, just like every other product. And it didn't change anything. It didn't make anyone rich, at least not in the short term. And I thought that was a good sign. I was like, okay, so I'm right. The people that wanted Bitcoin, that thought that they already knew how to get Bitcoin. They didn't need Backed, so Backed did not free up new liquidity in any way. And a lot of people want things like Backed and ETFs and ETNs because they think that it's going to free up a lot of liquidity so they'll get rich. I like the idea of freeing up liquidity to Bitcoin in and of itself. Same thing with Lightning Network. I think all of our goals on Lightning is to figure out how to free up liquidity and get it flowing. But Bitcoin is meant to be your freedom money. And I don't really like the idea of seeing, $50 million worth of pension funds held in custodial Bitcoin, and then all those people somehow lose that Bitcoin or get ripped off by whoever's managing that fund somehow, get feed to death, or get, some kind of loophole where they get fiat value instead of Bitcoin value because Bitcoin appreciated too much and they didn't hedge like they can mess something up. They're trusted. And if all those people, like, look at me. I do not have retirement plan. I do not have any institutionalized saving method. I have entirely opted out. I have none of them. Stocks, bonds, insurance, whatever. None of them. I know how to save money. Like, I don't need somebody to save money for me. If I don't, and I also personally don't like the paradigm of businesses providing all of the things that humans need because they're employees. Like a business providing insurance for an employee, a business handling taxes for an employee, a business handling retirement planning for an employee. I have a feeling, I wasn't around when these habits formed, but I'm going to guess that they formed because of commercial incentives, and banks wanted more people to use these products, so they embedded them into work environments. And I remember running a business and having employees, and honestly, like, handling this stuff for them was a pain in the ass. I remember employees saying, "Oh, can I have insurance? When can you get me insurance?" And I said, "Yeah, and I can pay you the amount it costs you less." Like, or you can just get it yourself, like, because we were a small business. And so I think the paradigm for Bitcoin is just, it doesn't fit when you start talking about institutions putting a bunch of money in. It becomes much more like just doing more of what we were trying to fix in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the idea is that Bitcoin is money for people. Yeah. And speaking of money for people, I mean, there's new forms of money are coming up. Like, after the invention of Bitcoin now in the last months, other forms of money are coming up, like Facebook's Libre, for instance, so corporate money. And now the central banks seem to get pressure and try to build their own central money, crypto, whatever. What do you think about these new forms of money?
Similarly, I guess, with Libre, I think they made some mistakes with basically designing it to be a security where it was backed by a basket of things. What was the other one? You said Libre and
the central bank digital currencies,
like having like a national cryptocurrency.
Yeah. Like in China, the renminbi, I think they want to start early next year.
It's scary, honestly. I think that right now, citizens of countries that have fiat cash bills are very lucky, because I think we all know that eventually cash is going to be treated like an enemy, much similarly to how Bitcoin can be treated and have a narrative of being bad because people can do bad things with it. But I think that I know of no way that you can separate freedom from freedom to do bad. And I also don't think that that solving that problem or mitigating or addressing that problem should be done via restriction of tools. In other words, a knife is a tool. It is not. It does not cause murder. You know what I mean? People cause murder. And I'll go even further and I'll say, I have a feeling that if you fix money better and you align incentives better, there may be less incentive to commit crime. And you might get some good effects just by putting things in the right place.
Do you think that the whole discussion about Libre helps Bitcoin in any way?
It's impossible to measure, so any answer works. So I guess that means that it's probably not that useful of an answer. I mean, I guess it's always good to have people more educated about money. And if what money is becomes more of a topic, then that means that we're curing ignorance on some level. But my concern is I can't really tell how much ignorance we're creating along with it. The concept of that Libre having a money might ever be a good idea or a good replacement. The concept of that Libre may be better than or similar to Bitcoin. These are all like confusions we'll end up having to undo later. And I wonder if the exposure and the curing of the more broad ignorance is worth the miseducation of the other aspects. And so I just kind of stay out of the whole thing. You know, I don't actually think Libre, even since before we knew what Libre was, I just didn't really think it would ever actually be released. Mm-hmm. I'm told that, you know, they're dedicated and they have a large team and they're not giving up. So maybe I'm wrong, but I just can't see how it fits in the current economic system.
I found another tweet of you where you are thinking about the fact if the Bitcoin market is manipulated, and the question is by whom? I mean, the market is so small, I think, at the moment that bigger institutions with lots of money, if they buy or sell, the price reacts. But I think what you meant was if the state actors buy in at the moment. Did I understand that right?
Right. I mean, as a default behavior or a knee-jerk reaction, when people get into Bitcoin, the first thing that Bitcoin does to you is it makes you decide whether you want to be a trader. Because like now you hold this thing and all of a sudden 5 minutes later it's worth a different amount. And you think, should I buy more? Should I sell more? You know, what should I do? And you start having to decide whether to trade. And inevitably, as part of that, now you're an ignorant trader, and I use ignorant loosely as a clinical term. It's not a judgmental term. It's just a lack of information. And so now you've walked into this environment and you're ignorant, and now you start trying to fill in gaps of your knowledge, and so you inevitably start ascribing conspiracy theories to why the price moves. And this is a side of that tweet that you're mentioning that I did not intend to be a part of or demonstrate. It's more like we have so many people like crying about like Tether is manipulating the market, or Bitfinex is manipulating the market, or you know there's this whale trader that sold, or Satoshi is gonna do this, or Craig Wright's gonna do that. And what happens is when you don't have an answer, the brain inevitably tries to fill in whatever you think you can create as being the best answer in your own paradigm. And for me, I see like, okay, we already know, like from the Snowden leaks and things like this, there are social attacks that are being done by states. You know, we know they use this as a tool. We already know that AI and machine learning, algorithmic programmatic behavior can be applied. And if you combine these two things, you can create some pretty dangerous situations where if you also have influence over the media, if you've set up a whole botnet of Twitter accounts that are now like going to be seen in everybody's feed, of all the right people, of all Bitcoiners or something. If you want to, I don't think as a state it would be very difficult to create a social influence over the price. And when I made that tweet, well, that was when they were announcing this child pornography bust that they did. And I admittedly did not read very much deeply into the article or about what actually happened, but I read enough to where I noticed that the event actually had occurred 18 months before this news. But the news it just almost felt like a strategic release. And like in my Telegram rooms and in my Twitter, I saw all this like anti-encryption news, all this all this associating Bitcoin with bad behavior news. And I'm like, this is weird. Like all of my signals right now for like the past 3 hours are all like, Bitcoin is in danger because it's encrypted and it's letting people do bad things. Like, how does this all happen in one moment? So I am an ignorant person trying to fill in the blanks as to an answer as to why this is the current situation. And I decided to just attribute a pattern to this and say, you know what? If the Bitcoin markets are manipulated, who would have the most capability to do so? Certainly not Bitmain or Tether or whatever. It's expensive to manipulate a market. And who has the most fuel to burn? The people that print the money.
Have you ever looked into, I guess you have looked into other altcoins, and did you ever feel or think that you should invest in them?
Maybe on a trading level, anybody could make an argument to invest in anything. If you like the chart and you like whatever you think as the fundamentals, as a trader, I don't think you should have any specific requirements for the quality of your asset if you think you know where the price is going to go. I don't think most people know where the price is going to go for anything. But with altcoins, I think that there are occasionally interesting things, but I do not hold any of them as investments. Just to give an example, like this is not an endorsement, but when you see a team doing something that is definitely trying to make sure they're fully doing what they know they couldn't be doing on Bitcoin, then at least you have some argument for that maybe you're doing something interesting. Monero is an example of this. They definitely make design decisions that are contrary or incompatible with Bitcoin and probably would never be able to happen. And they're making decisions in ways that seem creative or maybe possibly useful, worth testing. But the problem with this is I don't see the use to hold Monero. If Monero became really great at washing your Bitcoin, if they say we could atomic swap Bitcoin for Monero and now you can gain some privacy by hopping into that network, then I guess that would be cool. But the issue I see is maintaining the security of an altcoin. You really need people to hold and transact that altcoin, and I don't see why. If its only purpose is to add a privacy layer to wash something, for lack of a less criminal sounding term, then you have no reason to actually hold it. You're just, a visitor, a tourist. And I don't know if a coin can live without real holders.
You just use it. Yeah. How do you see the developments in Bitcoin towards more privacy?
Definitely. There's always a healthy portion of Bitcoiners that's their main focus. I personally have no interest in seeing Bitcoin privacy added to the base layer. I know I think I'm not the only person, but I've been saying for years that could be the next Bitcoin battleground, which is if we have some really important Bitcoin developers that take a hard line on wanting to fork, say, to add privacy, or wanting to have privacy somehow, even without a fork, on the base layer. I think you're going to see that they'll have just as much respectable people, just as many respectable people taking the counter side. And that could be a tricky little moment for Bitcoin if that happens.
Is that because then we couldn't see the total amount of coins anymore? The inflationary?
Yeah, I could put it even a little bit more broadly as far as that goes. Just having, for lack of a better term, visual auditability, or maybe monkey auditability. Like for people who aren't wizards, we can have a little more confidence that this thing is auditable. Sure, yeah, that's one part. But I also think that as a unit of account, as a accounting system, as not wanting to be attacked by governments, I think you kind of want your base layer to be as transparent and immutable and basic as possible. And if you want privacy, I see no reason why you can't, rig together the base layer with the lightning layer, with coin join, with atomic swapping, with whatever you need to achieve a higher level of privacy. Because I just think it's more I literally believe that a blockchain base layer that is transparent is more valuable than one that is not.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of hard forks, what happened to Roger Ver?
What happened to him? You have to ask his mother.
Yeah. Because I think you made a legendary interview with him. Is that right?
Yes, the Bcash dancing interview. I conferences like this, I have to walk in, and the people that do recognize me, doing little Bcash dances, and I feel a little bit like a walking meme sometimes. I mentioned earlier when I walk by a Bitcoin sign guy, I feel like a disturbance in the force because it's two memes walking too closely together. But I mean, I don't know. I think we're all ready to move past that. We're all ready to move past Roger Ver. I really just don't even consider him relevant anymore. He bought his relevance back then, and I was there to be one of the people to help take it away from him. Unfortunately, it didn't totally work. I think it helped, but he persists. But I don't think he's not relevant any longer.
Do you think that people like Roger or Greg Wright can do harm to Bitcoin?
Yes, not because of their arguments or their expertise or their efforts being better at business or whatever it may be, nothing like that, but because they can do damage to Bitcoiners. They can target individuals, and if they have a big enough stack of money, they can do damage. Craig Wright suing, I don't know if suing is the correct term, but whatever he's doing with Hodl and with a few other people for defamation, these things put a real grind on these people. Sure. Like, I don't know what Hodl does for a living or what he contributes to Bitcoin outside of Twitter, but imagine if he's a core developer. And he's an important core. Imagine he's the core developer that's fighting to make sure Bitcoin is private and not on the base layer. And now imagine he has to spend a year of his life or half of that year dealing with this bullshit. Now you've just kind of halted Bitcoin privacy. Just indirectly without even having to attack Bitcoin itself. And so, yes, I think that these people can be dangerous just because they have money, which gives them power. And just, unfortunately in this world, it's not just about whether you're a good person and want to spend money. Actually, I should say fortunately, it doesn't matter whether you're a good person. But I do hope they get to see some consequences for their actions. I do hope that there is still a good part of government that will help stop people like this. But at the same time, I think their reputation is gone within the Bitcoin world. And so maybe we don't even need government to intervene.
I think for people who are coming in new, it might be a little irritating, because you can't decide. You can't know what's the real thing. I mean, you have to investigate, then but
this is another way that they grind at us. They make us waste time because we have to re-educate everybody all the time. And people, when you're in Bitcoin for years, you sometimes forget that the people that have only been here for 1 year, 2 years, they didn't see all of these things already. It's all new. And so they think it's the first time. and to have to re-educate or constantly educate or constantly refute bullshit, it takes a lot of energy. I
mean, same with the saying that Bitcoin is not decentralized enough. It's also
nobody knows what's decentralized enough anyway. Like, there's no measure of quality for decentralization.
Yeah, but they use arguments that Bitcoin has failed, like it's too slow, it's not scalable for their own shitcoins in a way, or for their own products.
Well, I've said this before in podcasts, but the job of every altcoin is creating a narrative against Bitcoin. And whoever has the best narrative against Bitcoin gets the most ignorant money.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Bitrefill. Because I'm also interested in that. So when was Bitrefill founded and what was the idea?
if I recall correctly, I believe it was 2015. It might have been 2014. But originally, Sergey, the CEO, the story I'm told is that he envisioned that at some point there would be a Bitcoin version of every business. And he identified, he was like, well, which one would make the most sense that is achievable? And they went with selling phone refills. And then it was a phone refill company for a few years. Yeah, for Bitcoin, for a few years. And then sometime about a little over a year ago, they added Steam gift card when BitPay stopped offering. Actually, I should say when Steam stopped accepting Bitcoin through BitPay, then Bitrefill had added the Steam card, and that was one of my that was my first consumer interaction with Bitrefill. And from there, Bitrefill continued to add more gift cards, and we've seen a lot of traction in that area. The Bitrefill card sales have far surpassed the refill sales over the past year. We went from having one gift card to now it's like the main thing of what we sell. And then so that's kind of how it started. Is he saw which I would guess I would say is like the early intuition of the circular economy concepts we talk about now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you're incentivizing people to spend Bitcoin and Lightning to buy something to get a circular economy?
I would word it a little bit differently. We don't incentivize anyone to do anything. Aside from we don't even have a Sats back program. So as far as incentivizing people, no, that's not what we do. What we do is we allow them to do it. We give them the capability, the utility for their Bitcoin to be able to have an alternative off-ramp to an exchange.
Yeah, or also I think it's the only possible way to buy, for instance, at Amazon. If I would buy an Amazon gift card at your shop.
There are some other companies that are doing some creative ways to kind of shop at Amazon. Mm-hmm. But as far as what we do have a lot of products that you can only acquire through the combination of Bitrefill and Bitcoin, mm-hmm. Or cryptocurrency mm-hmm. in general, because there are people in some countries that it's not really possible or easy to move your money in such a way so you can acquire, I don't know, an American Steam gift card or an American Google Play gift card as somebody living in Slovakia or something, but you have a use for it maybe for some reason. And so there are these little kinds of cross-border use cases where this isn't necessarily people trying to break laws, but they might be trying to break restrictions.
Okay, so it's possible if I'm located in Austria, because I was on your website and I saw there are some gift cards to buy. But I could also buy one from anywhere else.
I mean, you can buy a gift card, any of our gift cards from any country with Bitcoin, but whether or not they'll work is going to be a different story. Okay. For example, there's nothing illegal or bad or stopping you from buying a gift card from China or Hong Kong or wherever, any place we sell for, but how you redeem it might affect you. Because different gift card companies, different issuers, as we call them, will have different terms and conditions for each gift card, and they also not only have different terms and conditions, they have different triggers for suspicious behavior, and those sometimes they include redeeming a card from an outside country. So in other words, buying a Canadian gift card but redeeming it from a Austrian IP might flag something. So you might get some hassle. But this varies by card. And sometimes it doesn't even matter. Some cards are totally international. And sometimes people use VPNs to not trigger these things. And I want to be clear that it's that they're not usually, as far as I know, they're not doing these things to commit crimes. Mm-hmm. They're doing these things because of natural automated systems that make it a pain in the ass or impossible to do legitimate things.
Mm. But you've listed a lot of countries. Do you have to follow any regulations there? Because that might be a huge amount of bureaucracy work, or is your business free of regulation? So
I don't know that I can give a comprehensive answer because I'm not the lawyer and I'm not the compliance guy. But I'll say this: we're a Swedish company. We follow Swedish law. We follow EU law. We follow EU AML regulations. And as any crypto company, we're extremely sensitive to also doing our best to follow American law, especially for American customers. But in the gift card paradigm, it is not the same as like exchange or other types of custodial wallets or payment processors. This is not really quite what we're doing. So we have a little bit of a different legal spectrum to be considering. Gift cards have separate and different regulations and laws in most modern, evolved countries, probably all countries. Again, I'm not the lawyer. So we definitely comply. But we just happen to probably not have to comply as much as some Bitcoiners are used to, like with exchanges and things like this.
Okay. Another product you're offering are the Lightning channel. How do you say fills? No, you offer Lightning channel capacity to businesses.
So we're one of the kind of test cases or experiments in this concept of an LSP, which is the idea of doing a Lightning service provider, sort of like an internet service provider, where basically we're providing paid access and reliability services for participating and joining this network. And that's how we see it. We see it as providing almost like Lightning networking services, basically. And this line of products so far is named under the brand Thor, like God of Thunder. And we currently have about 4 facets to this. One is just opening a channel, which is access, giving you the ability to receive Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. And we will open a channel from our node to you, and that's one service. We have also we have turbo channels where we will open a channel to you, and it will also contain Bitcoin. So you not only can you receive, but you can send. Then we have recharge, which is we will complete an invoice to any endpoint. So basically, we'll put Bitcoin in any pre-existing channel. This allows you to pay invoices or to refill your own channels, etc. It's all the same thing on Lightning. And then finally, we have our Thor API, which is basically taking these services and putting them in an API environment, so businesses can now embed these things into their platforms to add utility or reliability for their Lightning capabilities.
If I would like to open a channel and receive payments, I have to pre-fill the channel, and that's what you do. So, and can I pay you in fiat or only in Bitcoin?
No, as a company, we have currently at least have no fiat payment capability. We're all crypto. So you can pay with Bitcoin or any of the altcoins that we support. And in some cases also we have integration. So like you can pay with your Coinbase account and you can connect. We have some things like this with integrations with other partners. But generally speaking, we have no fiat method of obtaining our services. We're not selling Bitcoin, which would be the effective thing that would happen if we accept Bitcoin. I mean, we can make an argument how it's maybe not technically selling Bitcoin, but these arguments become harder to make when you actually involve fiat.
Yeah. So, and how do you see, how's the growth in these services? I mean, how many businesses want them?
I would say that the growth is, as I mentioned earlier, the Lightning Network is a little bit slow in these past couple months. The growth was really great for the first half of the year, and I think that it will resume either soon after this event or something when the price picks up as well. It just takes time, but the issue here is we're really early at this, and this isn't just about getting how many businesses, what is the growth rate. This is still at the stage of, all right, we're talking to many businesses and learning how to adjust our offering to give them what they actually need. We've taken some guesses as to what we assume they will need, but we have also learned, and soon in the coming weeks we'll have some announcements about more Thor types of offerings that better address what people tell us they need. But we will have we're working on partnerships. We're working on getting Lightning adoption into more of the infrastructure of Bitcoin, and you'll see some news in the next few weeks.
Okay, great. Speaking of news, and I see your shoes. We have both New Balance today. And have you seen yesterday? New Balance has announced a blockchain project with Cardano. And I wrote on Twitter, I think I have to rethink my appreciation for my shoes.
Yeah. Well, if I'm honest, I lived in Boston for a while. I'm from Massachusetts originally, and if I recall correctly, that's where New Balance is originated. Maybe I'm wrong, but New Balance is very popular in that area. I was near some headquarters. I lived near there in the past. This is many years ago, and I've always loved their shoes. But honestly, I hate the ones I'm wearing. I can't stand them.
Okay, I always have the same. I don't know what the number is at the moment, but it's always the same. 548 or something like that.
I don't know. For some reason, my feet are always killing me after I wear these things.
Okay,
and I shouldn't have brought them. But I mean, blockchain for shoes. I mean, this is
why?
old. We have who was doing this? They ended up pivoting away from doing the shoes. It was like one of these companies like Provenance, where they wanted to do like fish on the blockchain. They were the guys that wanted to do sneakers on the blockchain. And then they kind of like pretended that never happened and pivoted to something else. But obviously there's no need. You can't make the physical world obey a blockchain. So exactly. there's no digital association. It doesn't work. How
do you want to prove that the leather is really from exactly that place? I mean, you have to put a chip in the cow or something.
I think that all of this blockchain for what's the word?
Supply chain?
Blockchain supply chain. Yeah, blockchain for supply chain for provenance. This is all nonsense. It's no different than putting a sticker on a fish. Like that's what it amounts to. Like, and you have to trust the person that puts the right sticker on the right fish, and it's just nonsense.
So it only makes a blockchain, if we use the word, makes only sense in a digital life or a digital world.
I don't think blockchain makes sense.
Okay. Because standalone, it's only a database. It's like
I can remember where the word came. The word was just meant to be descriptive about an aspect of how Bitcoin works. It wasn't meant to be like a revolution in database design. Maybe it is, but in the end, the only application that we've properly discovered that it actually works for is something like an uncensorable store of value. And the thing of it is, it's like it's so simple. It's not even just like it's even simpler than saying it's the only use is money. I can just get really, really direct and literal. It's a store of value. It literally stores a numerical value within a UTXO that is and it provides a method for transferring the right to transfer it. and so it's just a database that manages who can move literal values, and that's all it does. And it's just really good at that.
Yeah, we're coming to an end now. Let's do some wild guessing. What will happen in the next 5 years?
In the world?
No, in Bitcoin.
In the next 5 years in Bitcoin. I think that I think we'll get our first taste of how Bitcoin really hurts something in the traditional world. A crash of gold or a crash of the market that is mostly widely attributed to Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin will have its moment where it will cause a pain to an institutional concept of humans. Maybe it'll kill a bank or a sector of banks. Maybe it'll exacerbate some type of lending problem with student loans. There'll be something that people will attribute to Bitcoin where it's going to start causing some pain in the system, because it's disruptive, And so far there hasn't had to be much disruption of the non-Bitcoin users, and so I think that would be one thing that I'm expecting to see in the nearer future, in the next 5 years, where people start attributing a disruptive quality to Bitcoin and have more reasons to have fun against it.
Do you have any recommendations for listeners, like books to read or videos to watch for the basics of Bitcoin, or for newbies in general?
Honestly, with books, I read a lot. Do I read books a lot? No. My reading is mostly just trying to keep up with the day-to-day of the industry, with sometimes with papers that people write, with more long-form articles that people write that are more kind of research-oriented, social media, my job, etc. So I'm not going to recommend the book. And honestly, nothing against the book writers. I think that there's no book that you need to read as far as that's Bitcoin specific. I think what you really, I'm biased. I'm going to recommend what I think worked for me. And what worked for me was diving right fucking in. I dove in. I found all the people that seemed the most extreme about Bitcoin. I learned why they had such confidence about how they were so extreme and so confident about these concepts. And I did my best to understand why everybody is behaving this way, why everybody believes, and then you just keep digging, you just keep falling down that rabbit hole, and you do this. I think you really do this through the community. I think I really liked the onboarding process of somebody coming in through crypto Twitter. I would rather see that happen than have them start with like a specific book and then the followers of that author and then maybe be on a weird path. I don't know how to prevent people from joining in through like altcoins. This is another tricky thing. But no, I don't have a specific book to recommend. I would recommend participating in the community, be a part of things, and do not trade. But this is unless it's your career, if it's something you have particular experience with. But don't fancy that you're going to get rich somehow, or fancy yourself a trader and lose all your money. Remember, it's never too late. But I'm sitting here. I saw Bitcoin at $10, and I never would have imagined that it would go to 1,000 when it did, or 20,000 when it did. And then I remember when it went from 1,000 to 250, and being in despair that it was at 250 for a year, and just thinking, and thinking I missed it. I thought because I didn't sell everything at 1,000, I felt like I missed something. But imagine, I felt like I was depressed and felt like I missed out because Bitcoin was at $250. And imagine if I had just had confidence and just been all in, and
Yeah. Where can people follow you and also find Bitrefill?
You can follow me on Twitter. Probably the best place is my handle is Bitcoin Error Log. You can find me on Telegram there and maybe some other social media. For Bitrefill, it's bitrefill.com, @Bitrefill on Twitter. We're often doing podcasts, myself, Sergey, sometimes Justin. We're often also the three of us appearing at conferences doing interviews like this, so it's pretty easy to find us. I try not to say stupid things, so give it a try.
Okay, thank you very much and have a good time here at the conference.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Bye. So thank you for listening. And please remember to check out the Bitbox O2 hardware wallets. Free shipping with the code ANITA at shiftcrypto.ch. 2 editions, both Swiss-made, including a Bitcoin only. What can I say? I'm a fan. And thanks also to Card Wallet. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. What did you think of the interview? Did it bring you greater understanding of Bitcoin and its people? If yes, and if you want to support my show, please subscribe to the podcast in your player, leave some stars and share on social media. Feel free to contact me on Twitter, LinkedIn and YouTube, or send me a voice message via the link on the episode page. Goodbye from Vienna. Auf Wiederhören. Music, start with Yes, Delicate Beats. Idea, content and production, yours truly, Anita Posch.